We continue our work. Please welcome Victoria Yasynska, journalist, photographer, and author of the exhibition The Portrait of a Soldier that we have the honor to inaugurate today. And please also welcome Olena Mas, training coordinator and a good colleague. Let them explain why they're here. Good afternoon. Speaking of the exhibition, I've been working on a series for actually Censor Net web resource. It is about a series of interviews with a variety of our soldiers or volunteers, and I do these in the form of a monologue. These are mostly psychological interviews to tell stories of their fights. And after my 10th or 15th interview, it came to me that it could make a nice story about young men representing our society. And I had this idea of making an exhibition for quite long. But with advent of volunteers, who suggested to make it as a charity event, I thoroughly liked the suggestion. I really like making portraits, and the portrait of a soldier is a combination of my keen interest and a certain very important social function. I really wanted them to be in one style as much as possible, the way I see them, in a semi-documentary way, I'd say. Many of them I shot at our hospital, some of them at the front line, others and somewhere in the city when we could sit over coffee to talk. And these are really interesting guys. If we forget that you're a journalist, and if you try just to talk, then you get in response histories well worth a separate book. It really makes a difference when you just have a coffee, a small talk about their life. It opens entirely another vantage point. All of them are really different, they differ from one another, but they're all united by a very important idea of protecting their own motherland. It's the most widespread idea among them. That was what I found at my first stage of communication, and now I see in them a clear intent to revenge their fallen brethren. These people are very interesting in their own right, and they're really worth this conversation. Still, many of them, and it is not just my opinion, but opinion of the many of them need certain psychological support from others, from governments. Many of them would not recognize this or agree with it, but it was one of the ideas behind this charity event to collect certain amount for this really honorable cause of helping this guy. And Olena will speak more in detail about the training that they're about to undergo. And for those of them who've been through this training, a change in the vision of their life objectives came, and this is really something that we as volunteers and they feel is something good. It is also a reflection of our age-old problem of poor acceptance of psychologists and their capacities. Because these guys, they will have to come back to peaceful life, they will have to come back to normal social behaviors, to their families, to find that this is not that easy, no longer easy for them. And because of that, I think it is important to bring attention to these trainings, and there will be scores of these guys in need of this training. So it will be an attempt to really make these people come back to real normal life, not just in physical terms, and there are volunteers doing physical rehabilitation efforts, but I think that psychological rehabilitation is more important in this case. Now the floor is for Olena. This exhibition was organized by the Union of Veterans of Anti-Terror and the Union of Veterans of the United States, and both organizations have been involved in the training of the brethren in Ukraine to provide certain set of tools and instruments for ATO veterans, also to those who continue fighting there, in terms of overcoming the post-traumatic stress disorder and related conditions. The training lasted for 4.5 months, and the first group is already through. They've got certificates. We have other Ukrainian organizations were involved in the training, like the veteran organization I mentioned, and the language of good, and a number of other organizations, and we plan to further develop this training capacity, to enroll more groups, to carry out lectures. We want to involve those who socialize with our soldiers, the family members, volunteers working on the front line. We know how people can suffer from this burnout syndrome, and we need to teach them how to overcome this. And we want to establish a peer network of support among veterans. I think many of you and many of them have come across a situation when fighters, even in definite need of psychological assistance, nevertheless would never go to see a psychologist, and they would rather respond to their peers, their colleagues, their brethren in blood. I think that we should consider this exhibition as a call of life aimed at these military servicemen, and to their relatives, to their friends, to volunteers involved, so that we all know how to properly say hello to those who come back to a peaceful life from the war. Thank you, dear colleagues. You're welcome to put questions. If not, we can switch to the exhibition itself, and you'll be able to put your questions there in front of the portraits. I'd like to remind you that this exhibition will last until